you never know what's going on inside of other people's relationships. So I don't pass judgment on what people choose to leave, to stay, whatever, because you don't know unless you're in it. But I have a very high value for marriage. And I was like, I am not going to get divorced. Like I can't do that. I can't do that to my kids. I can't do that to myself. I can't do that to my husband. I can't do that to my community. Like I know that it's a big effect on everyone. And also my husband is truly the most extraordinary man I've ever met. Like I'm not like, I was like, the grass is not greener. Like I'm not going to be able to find someone like this, and I don't want to, and I don't want to look for them. And so what happened is I kept like feeling worse and worse, but also being clear that this was not something to leave. There was no escape. Like, that feeling of like, I need to escape versus, I'm going to just slug it out and suffer forever. But the thought that kept coming up in my head is I won't be able to slug it out. Like, I'm not that woman who can do it for 30 years.
Thank you so much, Shiloh, for joining me today. I have been and I am super excited to chat with you today.
Well, thank you. I'm super excited.
Great. All right. I would like to start off by asking you, what is the one thing that you wish people would have told you before having kids?
I wish that people would have told me that it changes everything. It changes you. It doesn't just change your obligations and the people you love and your environment, but that taking care of children, like I was going to say having children, but I presume that adopting them would have a similar effect. But bringing this person into your sphere and becoming their all in all is completely life changing, to the point where you don't know what you'll be like. Like you won't really be able to project that. And so it's like an adventure. It's like a portal. It's like dropping down into something unknown where you have a lot of difficult decisions to make, about how to care for yourself, how to care for your children, how to grow up, how they should grow up, and that nobody can give you those answers. I always was the kind of person, and I still am, who will read everything possible on a topic. I'm like, oh, somebody knows, somebody's an expert on this, I'm going to read it. And I've had to let go a little bit of that infatuation with information, because it doesn't, how do I put this? It's great to speak to experts. I still love speaking to experts. I love reading books. But if you think that they're going to take away the existential angst of motherhood, they won't.
The existential angst of motherhood.
Yes.
Okay.
The unbelievable responsibility of little people who, your vibe, your choices, your everything, they don't pick it. You don't know if it's the right one. You're not perfect. Like they call it mom guilt, right? And everybody tries to be like, oh, why are moms so guilty? And that's why. It's because you can't know what effect you will have on your children. You can't ever have certainty that you've made the right decisions. And so it comes to a letting go and a surrender and a trust that you didn't need before children. You didn't need that level of Zen mastery, or whatever you want to call it. It wasn't necessary. You just go out and learn stuff and do what you want to do. And if your life's not quite vibing with you, you can do something different. And I know a lot of your audience probably doesn't have children, and it always seems so condescending because people with children are like, oh, you have no problems, life's so easy. But that's how you think. Once you have children, you're like, why did I worry so much? My life was so easy.
Right.
And it's not that to minimize, because obviously there are many very, very hard things in my life before children, but they're mostly just about you. Once you're an adult, they're you and how do I deal with me. But when that all gets tied up with husband and kids, and it's just so complicated, it's so unbelievably complicated. So that's a very long answer, because I don't think there's one thing they could have told me, except for that, nobody can save you from this. You have to go in and find your own identity as a mother, and your own style, your own approach to who you're going to be now and how you're going to raise children. And that yeah, nobody can co-sign on that to the point where you don't feel that pressure.
Mm-hmm. Wow, thank you for that.
Mhm.
And I don't have children myself, so I've been so looking forward to this conversation just to open my eyes a little bit more. I have lots of women in my life that are mothers, lots of friends, lots of single women as well that are single moms. And I pick up little bits and bobs from them about challenges, and just having a dedicated conversation to this subject, I think is, yeah, I've just been, again, very excited about it. And thank you for that answer. And there's so many things that stood out to me, and that I want to get back to. And the biggest thing was, I was originally going to ask you about your marriage before and after, which I'm still going to do down the road. However, what stood out more to me was like how motherhood changes you entirely. And I think about this baby being birthed, if you do have a birth, this child being born, a new life, and almost like it simultaneously the mother being born or being reborn. So I wonder, who were you, if you remember, before you had your first child, and in what was like the biggest change that you noticed in yourself?
Yes, I do believe it's a new birth when you have a child. I think before I had a child, I did have this illusion of control. Like I thought I could hack everything. I had a philosophy of like I can be ahead of the game. Like I can figure things out before they come, and then I won't go through that stuff. Like
Mm-hmm.
I was all about being prepared, right? Like I'm just going to be super prepared. And I really invested all my faith in that ideology.
Mm-hmm.
You can read the books, you can find the ways, you can, do the therapy, whatever. And then when you have kids, you're going to have your theory in place, you're going to have philosophy in place, you're going to have your whole strategy in place. I've talked to my husband about how we're going to raise kids. We agree it's going to be fine. Like this kind of I want to use the word arrogance, but that sounds harsh. It's more like a naivete, like
Mm-hmm.
really just wholesale thinking I had control if I just did enough prep, if I just did enough research, if I did
Right.
enough work, then I would be able to manage anything in life. I just anything. And it gave me kind of a confidence and a positivity, which is great, like served me really well. And what happened when I became a mother is that was torn from me painfully and slowly because at first you fight to keep it, right? Like
Mm.
what you'll see with many first time moms is we have to do things the right way. And
Mm-hmm.
we're like rabidly obsessed with this, whether that's how you breastfeed, how you toilet train, how you discipline, how you sleep your kid. All that stuff must be done the right way. And we're like death grip on this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we want to be great moms. We want our kids to do well. Like it's all the most beautiful intentions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, these things that you're trying to do, either they don't work for you, or they don't work for your kid, or they don't work for your marriage, or they don't work for your job, or they don't work for your lifestyle. And you start trying to force this ideal motherhood into yourself, into your context. And it causes pain and suffering and shame and grief and exhaustion. And it's like, I feel like the change in motherhood happens when you surrender the ideal of motherhood,
Mm.
especially if you're
Mm-hmm.
a bit more mature when you have a child. Like this is extreme in women in our 30s because we had like 10 adult years to like fantasize and idealize this role,
Yeah.
how amazing it's going to be, how awesome we're going to be, how great our kids are going to be. um and every kid is so different, and every pregnancy is so different, and every home is so different that there's no possible way it's going to look the way you imagined. Like
Mm-hmm.
in some aspects, of course. And every time
Mm-hmm.
every time that happens to me, I'm like, oh, this is how I imagined it. Yay, it worked. But like so many times when it was it was not serving me. And what I find in most cases, it's the mom who breaks. right?
Mm.
Like in order to maintain the ideals we have, we
Mm.
sacrifice ourselves because we're so
Yeah.
committed to the ideals. I have to
Right.
do it this way. So it's okay if I suffer a little bit, or I don't sleep enough, or I don't get my exercise, or I don't see my friends because this kid's life is so important and they're just a baby and whatever. And when we wake up one day and go, what happened to me? Where did I go? Why do I not recognize myself, like in a bad way? Lose the mojo, lose the zest for life, lose affection for your partner, lose interest in pleasure, just like you become this mom robot. And then you go, okay, something's got to give.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's when you transform, because that's when you have these, roads diverging.
Mm-hmm.
Who's going to give? And the thing too that I've noticed is that at what point a woman breaks has a lot to do with, her trauma, her upbringing, or whatever. Some women will kill themselves for 30 years, right? Which is really
Mm-hmm.
tragic, and become ill and really suffer like super super badly. And some will, um, kind of want to escape right away. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, this is so painful. I'm not cut out for this. Like, I hate motherhood. Oh my God, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
panic right at the start and like want to leave or want to get divorced or somehow just get me out of this uncontrolled thing that I can't, get a handle on at all.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think I had both those impulses kind of fighting each other. Like there was one
Mm-hmm.
that was like, shame, like I'm pissed off, I'm resentful, I'm miserable, I'm tired, and like, Shiloh, this is like what you dreamed of. Like you want to be this amazing mom. Why are you so weak? Like dig in,
Mm.
do more,
Uh-huh.
right? Like get over yourself. This kind of like total bipolar tension
Yeah.
in and so yeah, it's when I went, okay, I'm not going to be that ideal that I carried for 10 years or more,
Yeah.
maybe since childhood. I'm not going to be her. I'm going to consciously give myself permission not to be the fantasy mom.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a grief. Also,
Mm-hmm.
have to give your kids permission not to be the fantasy kid, which is, I feel, taboo to even say because we don't admit these things. But I read a book once and she said, we are talking about the kid you got, not the kid you wanted. Like, kids
Yeah.
will push your buttons. Kids will exhaust you. Kids
Mm-hmm.
will bring up your shadow. Like a lot of people talk and love how your partnership will show your shadow, right? Will bring out the worst in you sometimes. Totally see that. And children, exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly the same energy of like, oh, you do the thing that I can't handle so much. And what am I going to do about this? Am
Mm-hmm.
I going to relentlessly try to make you change and
Yeah.
sacrifice all connection through criticizing and manipulating and pressuring you? Or am I going to go, oh my God, let that one die too?
Yeah.
let it
Yeah.
let it be. It's hard.
Mm-hmm. So I want to ask you, how long did it take you to come to this breaking point? Like, well, yeah, what was the time for you? And maybe also, so that's one thing. And then if you're willing to share some of the specifics from the time like your child was born, how you noticed, yeah, I guess your emotions change and your feelings change. Like, what did you notice in your, maybe in yourself and in your partnership as well? I'd love to know more about that.
So it really was the second child that was the tipping point, which happens for a lot of people. And
Mm-hmm.
partly, I think in my case, that was because my first child, um, I was doing attachment parenting. So he's like attached to me all the time. And my husband was totally in support of that. So that didn't cause conflict because he was like, yes, 100%. Like we both kind of had this ideal of like everything about the kids. And so for at first, there was like, I could kind of handle it. I was exhausted and tired and stuff, but this was the ideal. We're working together on it.
Mm-hmm.
What I did notice though is that I became what felt to me like invisible as like a like romantic partner. Like I
Mm,
became mom to my husband.
mm.
I didn't mom him, but he was supporting the mom, you know?
Uh-huh. Okay.
And it was very tricky for me because I thought this is what I said I wanted. This is what people ask for. And yet there's like a distance in it, an emotional distance that wasn't there before. There was
Mm-hmm.
nobody literally in between us. There was no, um, oh, Shiloh needs, this and that. So, he was in a provider protector role vis-a-vis me almost
Mm-hmm.
completely. And I wanted attention and affection and that sort of thing. And it decreased. It was less after I had a
Mm-hmm.
kid.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now looking back on it, I understand it was because I had no vibrancy. Like
Mm-hmm.
all my energy was going towards this child, and I was asking to be more energy to be poured into me, but I wasn't really sharing myself because there was not much left. Like the exhaustion was really setting in with the not sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband was not sleeping too. Like he was there in the co-bed with us, and we laughed actually the other day. He goes, we were talking about not sleeping well and how it can get worse, like as you get older and more kids and stuff. And he goes, remember when we just had our first, and I didn't even have headphones because now we sleep with like headphones on sometimes, like whichever parent wants to actually sleep
Uh-huh.
because the kids make noises. And if you're at all a light sleeper, you wake up because somebody woke
Mm-hmm.
up. So I kind of
Mm-hmm.
laughed. I thought, oh yeah, back then when we were more idealistic and thought we should be able to cope with not sleeping for years.
Right.
So yeah, so there started to be this kind of like familial feeling. We got along
Mm-hmm.
okay and everything, but it was just like family and it was not
Mm-hmm.
romantic and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the second child came, he again super privileged. He took paternity leave. He like became the primary for the older boy, who he did an amazing job and they really bonded over that. So again, I'm like, okay, he's doing so much, but his like focus on me as like a romantic partner kind of disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was more desperate too, right? So it's like a double whammy because I was depleted and isolated from my friendships. The first year or two when your kid's napping all the time and you can't really go out because then they got to nap again and whatever. I was more grasping and more needy for him.
Mm-hmm.
So it created just greater distance
Yes. It's
incrementally over time.
interesting too that you said, or the term attached parenting. And
Yeah.
it's so true. Like you're attached to your child, like, or the child, you're providing that attachment to your child, while simultaneously, in your case, and probably lots of women cases, you're losing the attachment to your partner. So it's kind of interesting that attachment parenting, that's true, but not attachment in the whole partnership sense.
Interesting that you say that. And I've thought a lot about like why is attachment parenting so hard, or do a lot of women burn out on it? Some women, swear by it and do it for all their kids and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think it's because it was done in a village context. And
Mm-hmm.
so women weren't relying on men for emotional support. They were relying on other women for emotional support
Mm-hmm.
who would have
Mm-hmm.
been naturally, effortlessly providing cut childcare, help around the house, like all the stuff
Yes.
that all the women were doing would have been
Yeah.
seamlessly enjoyable together.
Yes. And also the caring of the child, right? Like it probably would have been passed from breast to breast back in the day
It,
and
yeah,
attached to the community, to the
yeah,
various women.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I
Mm-hmm.
think we're trying to recreate the bonding, that kind of primal bonding that we read about, right? Through attachment parenting, which still makes so much sense to me. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not like against it or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But I also see where it can be unsustainable because there aren't those other supports for the woman.
Mm-hmm.
She can't like the loneliness alone, I think, is a huge problem. The isolation from other women that
Mm-hmm.
happens when you're in early motherhood and you're doing attachment parenting and live away from your family or whatever. Like you literally can go weeks and weeks without really interacting with adults in any kind of social way
Mm, wow.
really easily, right?
Yeah.
And so all those things get placed on your husband. And that's also what I realized. Like, it's not reasonable or fair or in any kind of historical sense natural for him to know what to do there or to have the resources to know what to do, like any of it. It's like, first of all, the modern man who involves himself in child rearing to the degree he does is new, is
Mm-hmm.
very, avant-garde manhood kind of thing. And then
Mm-hmm.
to also be like holding space for this like kind of exhausted, irritable husk of the woman you knew, like, holy crap. Who's supporting him? Like, he doesn't even have friends, most men. Like, sadly, men should have friends, but a lot of them don't. And
Yeah.
I have
Yes.
compassion for them the same way we're isolated.
Yes.
So
Wow.
yeah, so it was kind of like a steady drip. And then when the second child came, um, I was now in retrospect realize I was dealing with the grief of not being able to maintain the attachment parenting with my first,
Mm-hmm.
and also not being able to do it at the like, same degree with my second, because now there's
Right.
two. But
Mm-hmm.
that was manifested as irritation and frustration.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have emotional regulation tools, so
Mm-hmm.
I was just mad a lot and frustrated. And that's the thing where I can see it now from my husband's perspective of like, this woman wanted to get married and have kids, and she is more pissed off than ever.
Yeah.
Like, stay away. So he just like continued retreating while providing, like, really good man, like the kids, the money, the stuff, doing it, not to my standard. Again, I didn't understand these things. So when I saw the house not being as clean as I wanted it to be or whatever, I would be irritated.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, who cares? Honestly, like now it's like, I don't even, those kind of standards are so superficial to me now because I realize that when the romance and the connection is present in my marriage, I don't care
Mm-hmm.
because I'm just like happy and loved and all glowy. And like that stuff is like, yeah, we'll get to it. It's always there.
Yeah.
But because I was irritable and all the rest of it. But this is so back to the original question, I lost the track for a minute. You said, when did it break for me? When did I break? And that's when.
Mm-hmm.
So when I had a 1 year old and a 3 year old,
Mm-hmm.
and I was angry all the time. I was exhausted all the time. I had no patience for my toddler because he was a very high needs kid who was like grabbing and peeing and just
Mm.
constantly causing chaos. He was 3, but I had no patience for it. And so I was like in this, my breaking point was not only am I not the ideal mom, I'm like so far from it that I can't look at myself. Like I was so ashamed of how I was, what my emotions were, how I was responding to the environment and to the kids. Not both of them. The little one was still, a baby, but he had dietary sensitivities. So I was getting mastitis. I was sleeping even less than with my first one. And I had to go on an elimination diet to figure out what this was.
Mm.
So the crucible for me was super hyper crazy 3 year old, super needy 1 year old, no sleep, and I'm eating like 5 different foods.
Mm-hmm.
And I was full of rage. And that was not what I expected to feel when I became a mother.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's interesting as you're talking about this, what comes up for me is like motherhood is like the ultimate symbol for womanhood, femininity, feminine energy. We're mothering, we're nurturing, we're in this beautiful space. Yet as you speak, was there any essence or any element of feminine energy left in you?
Such a good point. I so like it's so interesting to me because I feel that in my body about motherhood, right? And I
Mm,
feel it now on many occasions. But so much of actual motherhood is like frenetic, being head on a swivel, like stuff happening around you all the time, preventing disaster, cooking at the same time as cleaning, as like stopping kids from hurting each other, that it is really hard to drop into feminine energy while you're mothering small boys. Like,
mm-hmm.
really, really hard. Now, I will say that breastfeeding my kids, co-sleeping with my kids, I love it. I hate it and I love it. Because, there were times when I was just like, why am I doing this? And then I was like, I chose to do this. Like, I'm still choosing to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And so that closeness and that intimacy that I have with my children, where it's like we get each other and there's just like eye contact and that real depth of connection is magical and is amazing. And also where they need you, like that will soften you a lot sometimes, right? Where it's
Mm-hmm.
like, mom, they just put their hands up and you're like, oh, I'm sorry I was yelling at you. Like, I know you're just a little munchkin. But I will say that when you're a burnt out mom, it almost goes away completely.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a grief, it's a disappointment because you wanted to have that Mother Earth, the
Yeah.
ocean, just softness for your children. And
Yes.
then you're like, but I know I'm not bringing that energy a lot of the time,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. And what you talk about having, reflecting or visualizing all the women in my life that have children, to some extent, this is exactly what they've gone through. Like for none of them, it was this what they expected. For none of them, it was this harmonious, beautiful thing. But there's so many struggles, so much grief, so much anger and rage and disconnect with the partner. So and a lot of loneliness and yeah,
Yeah.
feeling isolated and um I guess not understood. So when you were at this breaking point, when you kind of looked around and you saw like who you were, what has become of your marriage, how this motherhood didn't, turn out the way that you anticipated, what was like, do you remember like a specific moment?
What I remember is I would have fights with my husband, or like I would try to get him to make me feel better,
Mm,
right? And he wouldn't be able to, or he wouldn't be able to respond with like that grounded, like mother energy, really, that I wanted, right? To be, it's okay, come here, give me a hug. He was just like also exhausted and almost confused. Like he did not understand what I was saying. That's kind of
mm,
what I realized now. Like, what are you asking for? How am I supposed to do that? And like, I don't get it. And also, like, you're always mad at me. So you can't ask me to come here and soothe you when you're giving me like disapproving, disrespectful kind of vibes all day. Right. I
mm-hmm.
understand now. My husband's not a wordy person. So I talk for him in my head. I figured out and like, okay, I understand now. But so we would have these, and that's what really um was demoralizing because as much as I fantasize about being, the good mom, I always fantasize about having the amazing marriage, having this loving, vibrant, passionate marriage that does not decay over time, that, is of these two like-minded people who just crazy about each other.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband's a very passionate person, and we had this really, you know, high intensity connection right from the get-go. And he's fearless, we just kind of adventurous and everything. And so to kind of go from that, which was the character of our relation when we met, to like this very cold, kind of perfunctory, dutiful marriage, I was just like, I can't live like that. And I have a very high value for marriage. Like I, even though I don't, how do I put this? You never know what's going on inside of other people's relationships. So I don't
Mm-hmm.
pass judgment on what people choose to leave,
Mm-hmm.
to stay, whatever, because you don't know unless
Mm-hmm.
you're in it.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a very high value for marriage. And I was like, I am not going to get divorced. Like, I can't do that. I can't do that to my kids. I can't do that to myself. I can't do that to my husband. I can't do that to my community. Like, I know that it's a big effect on everyone. And also, my husband is truly the most extraordinary man I've ever met. Like,
Mm-hmm.
he, I'm not like, I was like, the grass is not greener. Like, I'm not going to be able to find someone like this. And I don't want to, and I don't want to look for them. And so what happened is I kept like feeling worse and worse, but also being clear that this was not something to leave. There was no escape. Like, that feeling of like, I need to escape versus,
Yeah.
I'm going to just slug it out and suffer forever. But
Mm-hmm.
the thought that kept coming up in my head is I won't be able to slug it out. Like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not that woman who can do it for 30 years. And this is kind of a little aside, but what I realized in this process is the things that I saw as character flaws in myself, like that I was too selfish or I was too much about my needs, are what caused me to break through.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good thing that I want to be happy. It's a good thing that I don't have, enough perseverance in me to suffer for 20 years. Or I could have just done that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But the voice in my head went, no, you won't. You won't be able to do it forever. So you better figure out how to make it enjoyable that you don't want to leave,
Mm-hmm.
or eventually it will get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I communicated those kinds of things to my husband. And again, it just did not work. Like he didn't really get what I needed, didn't have the tools to respond to it the way I wanted him to.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember I would go to bed and bawl my eyes out all the time and just like have no idea what I was going to do. And it struck me that I needed help. And that was the turning point moment because I've gotten help in my life. I've been good at getting help. And it's always this moment of, I've done everything that I know.
Mm-hmm.
I've exhausted all my intellectual resources. I've tried all the things. They're not working.
Mm-hmm.
So either I can say, oh, that means I need a divorce, or it means
Mm-hmm.
I need help.
Yes.
Right. And so it
Mm-hmm.
was a I need help moment. And that I needed to reach out. I needed to find something that knew more than me, someone that knew more than me. And actually, what I did was I told my husband, I told a friend, I was stressed and stuff, and she recommended a parenting summit, like one of those virtual summits.
Yeah.
And I heard a parenting coach talk about the rage she felt at her own daughter and how,
Mm.
shocking that was to her. And I thought, this person gets it. She's not sugarcoating it. She's not making it, oh, we have to be patient. It's like, no, there's such intense emotions going on that are so overwhelming, right? That all the things you knew about parenting, you can't even do them because you're so filled with rage. And so I went to my husband and I said, I think I need help. And I think I need to do this parenting thing. And he said, your mental health is the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that was such a sweet moment to me because he didn't know how to help me, but he was all for me getting the help. He was
Yeah.
like, I can see you need it. I don't know what to do about it. So please. Because I thought he would say, oh, too expensive or whatever, have some kind of
Mm.
critique because he wasn't
Mm-hmm.
aware of the field at all, right?
Yeah.
But he, I think, number one, loved me and supported me and also saw this wasn't good for our family. Like, if
Yeah.
mom's not doing well, this is not going to be good for anyone.
Mm-hmm.
So I got this parenting coach. And she helped me with parenting, but what she really did was she broke me out of my victim complex.
Yes.
She
Uh-huh.
literally said to me, Shallow, you're not a victim. And I went,
Uh-huh.
oh my God. Because I never saw myself as whiny or victimy. I've always been a proactive person. Like, didn't really contemplate that that's what I was doing. But what I
Mm-hmm.
see now is that there's nothing like marriage and motherhood to bring out the victim in you because you
Mm-hmm.
think you can't escape. You think you're stuck. You think you don't have
Mm-hmm.
a choice. Right? She was like,
Mm-hmm.
you can do whatever you want. You're not stuck. And that was so powerful for me because I turned everything that I saw as victimizing me in my life, my difficult kid this way, or my difficult diet that way, or my husband not getting it, and turned it into I chose all of these people.
Mm-hmm.
I chose attachment parenting. I chose to continue nursing. I chose to sleep up with my kids. I chose to stay with this man. So, am I an idiot or is there good reasons that I chose these things?
Mm-hmm.
And that was very, totally, completely life changing.
Mm-hmm. Wow. What were some of the in a like your day to day
Mm-hmm.
yeah, in your day to day, how did you start to notice that moving from victimhood to like self-empowerment, self-responsibility? How did that start to show up?
Well, for example, I would stay up at night nursing my kid and feel just miserable and exhausted and trapped and alone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was practicing this stuff, she also taught inner child work, which is what I do a lot now too.
Mm-hmm.
So I would comfort my inner child, and then I would say to myself, you are living your values right now. You're like heroically living your values. You care so much about these kids having whatever, my version of the optimal childhood, that you want them to have that breast milk. You want them to have that skin to skin connection. You're not going to, compromise on those, and give yourself credit for that. Feel good about it. Feel empowered by that. Feel like this is you being, this mom you wanted to be. It just looks different
Mm-hmm.
than how you thought it would look.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started looking for ways to approve of myself. That was big, so,
Mm-hmm.
so big, because what I also wanted my husband to do was say how amazing a mom I was and how tired I, giving so much for the kids. But I wouldn't say it to myself.
Mm-hmm.
So my day to day was honestly just validating the hell out of myself as much as I could, and um, making meaning out of all the difficult choices I'd made, owning them over and over again. Like, I could change and feed this kid formula. Am I going to do that? Make a conscious decision. Okay, I'm not going to do it. So now I don't feel trapped.
Mm-hmm.
Every single bit of my day, I made a conscious choice about. And I have a thing now I tell my clients is, if the red flag word is I have to.
Mm-hmm.
No, you don't. There's no have to when you're a grown woman living in North America. Actually, there's zero have tos.
Yes.
But we talk like that all the time. My
Mm-hmm.
kids are like this, so I have to,
Mm-hmm.
not get any sleep. Or my husband is like that, so I have to do all the work. It's like, you
Mm-hmm.
don't.
Mm-hmm.
You don't. And even now, like, I'll catch myself sometimes using that phrasing about something, and I'm like, no, that's not true. I don't have to
Mm-hmm.
do anything. So I always tell them, you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. It's kind of hard to absorb the first time you hear that as a mother, because you spend so much of your life telling yourself you have to do all these things you don't want to do,
Yeah.
but you don't.
Mm-hmm. And what an empowering realization, and like a change in your words to, yeah, change that I have to, well, I want to, or I'm going to, or, it's like words have so much power.
Yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
it's that trapness. Like, I don't know if you're into Enneagram and stuff, but I'm an Enneagram 7.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an ENFJ. It's all about like freedom and expansiveness and like adventure. And then you're like stuck in this really narrow parenting mom role. It's like a real
Yeah.
shock to the system.
Yes.
But again, with the power of your mind and the power of your focus, this season has been the greatest adventure, because I have gone inwards and changed the inner landscape of my own self, which
Yeah.
is like way cooler than going to Thailand. Like,
It's
it
true.
really is, right? Like, you go to
Yeah.
Thailand, you have a great time, you come home, you're miserable again because your victim complex lives back at home, right?
Yes.
It's like we get stuck in that, as I
Mm-hmm.
think modern women, because we have so much more years of freedom,
Mm-hmm.
whereas like historically women had none of that. They didn't even, whatever, you just were taking care of your sisters, and then you were taking care of your nieces, and then you're taking care of your own kids, and you're taking care of your grandkids. Like, you probably never even got a taste of that kind of excessive freedom.
Mm-hmm.
But there is so much gold in the mothering role and in the parenting and in marriage, if you choose to take it for that,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to, this guy I chose is kind of difficult. Maybe I could have
Mm-hmm.
chosen an easier one, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's what we get thinking when we start getting into the transformative stages of relationship, where it's the make or
Mm-hmm.
break times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you said something that I found so powerful. You said did you say heroically choosing your values or
Yeah.
heroically living your values?
Yes. Yes.
That's, yeah, so powerful for every aspect of life, to
Mhm.
remind yourself like these are the choices that I made, and then I'm heroically living my values. That's so good.
What really did it for me too is because I feel like there's a lot of like, well, if you don't like it, don't do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you're like, I don't like it, but I want to do it. Like there's things we care about enough that it is worthwhile to go through the pain to do it,
Yes.
right? Like whether it's nursing your kids when they're, getting too old and annoying, or it's, staying married through a tough season that is not fun.
Mm-hmm. And
But if
ask
you're go ahead.
you, please.
I was gonna say, but yeah, but if you only choose what's easy, you're
Mm-hmm.
not gonna you're not gonna be able to respect yourself, and you're not gonna have the life you want.
Yeah.
Because the life that you really want is one that's based on your values. And so this is like also what I believe the maturing process of motherhood is, you start to really recognize the value in doing hard things like that you value, not just hard things for hard things sake,
Yeah.
but there's some honor and dignity and maturity that comes with, hey, I did this thing because I knew it was important and it mattered to my soul, and it was not
Mm-hmm.
fun a lot of the time.
Yes. And asking yourself in those moments, like, what don't I like about this? Why isn't this fun right now? And then
Yeah.
what you mentioned, doing that inner child work, like a lot of times the things that we don't like about something or that isn't fun is just triggering a part of us, whether it's like, I'm not sure, not wanting to, there's so many examples, but just asking yourself in those moments, if you're still aligned with your values and your vision, like what is it about this moment that I don't like, or
That's
that's
completely it. I found that with housework. I was
hmm.
always triggered by the endless housework of running a family. I thought, God, this stuff never ends. Like it's so boring. And like I had all these reasons to just hate it. Right. And then I did some work on it, and it was like, yeah, because at home there was so much pressure put on me to do it, even though lots of other people didn't do it, because I was the
Hmm.
oldest daughter and that was the tradition of my dad's family. And so I saw it as complete oppression to have to do housework.
Right.
And that's just like my terrible gloss I put on it. Lots of people like
Hmm.
cleaning their kitchens. I always was in awe of those women, still am. I'm like, I wish I loved it. I mean, I guess I could if I really put the energy into cultivating that belief. But the thing that's helped me with the housework is actually observing mature women who I admire, who keep their house well, because they have
Mm.
a dignity and a confidence and a zeal for it. They kind of like are proud of what they're doing, right? They
Hmm.
don't just see it as meaningless, busy work that gets left to them because they're the woman or they're whatever. They're like, no, I like to keep my house. I'm proud of my
Hmm.
house. And
Hmm.
and and I've almost kind of like absorbed some of those codes off them, to be like, this is a cool thing. And if you're going to choose that role, if you're going to choose a kind of homemaker type role, it's because you value a comfortable home and you take pride in the result, right?
Hmm.
And good for you then.
I love that you were able to shift that. Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. And so what were some of the ways that you started to notice the relationship with your husband change?
For the better, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the first thing I learned was about emotional safety. Like I learned that in the parenting work, right? Like if you criticize your kids and if you're on them all the time, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, they don't trust you. They don't feel safe with you. So they listen even less, right? They don't pay attention because what's coming from you always is, uh, uh, it always triggers a negative feeling. Mom says
Mm-hmm.
stuff and I don't feel good. So I'm going to kind of avoid her a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I immediately went, oh, that's what I'm doing to my husband. I'm like highlighting for him, stuff that I want changed all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's not gonna be easy to listen to. That's not gonna really open his heart. He's not gonna
Yeah.
be wanting to hear from me because I'm a negative source. And so the first thing I did was I stopped criticizing, and I
Mm-hmm.
just stopped doing it. I disciplined myself to bite my tongue and not offer unsolicited feedback and criticism about things. And I noticed right away that he started talking to me a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
That he just always like the beginning, he always had stuff to say and he was always wanted to come share whatever was going on for him. And he was just like chatty. And I got that like friendship vibe back right away where,
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't just criticism. I used to criticize his perspectives, right? Oh, you're being too negative. Or, I kind of would I would be triggered by his way of being in the world, and I would try to make him more like me, essentially,
Mm-hmm.
which naturally we're better than everybody else.
Of course.
Yeah, exactly. I like living in my head. I don't live in your head.
Yeah.
So I would have these kind of ways of like being a little bit combative, and it wasn't like splashy. We didn't like scream at each other. It was just annoying. Like he didn't want to talk to me because I always had something to, adjust about the way he was expressing something. And so I started to see it as I am offering like an emotionally safe space for him to have all of his ways of being.
Mm.
He can just be him, and it doesn't have to be at all like me, and I don't have to make it about me. I don't have to
Mm-hmm.
agree or disagree. I can just listen, right? And that evolved over time, I want to say, because at some point you do need to be able to um, express how someone's expressions affect you,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's nuanced. That's really high level. Like you first need to be able to not be triggered by everything someone says.
Mm-hmm.
First need to be able to hold your own emotional space,
Yes.
remain happy when they're not happy.
Yes. And that's so challenging at the best of times.
Yes.
Just for me, without kids, without having to navigate the family aspect, like that is so challenging. And what you're saying, like just being that safe space for someone to share their perspective, that's, yeah, that's really, I think that even is like advanced work. Cause I notice with myself, like even when I'm, feeling good within myself, like everything's going well, I'm balanced. But then if, my partner shares a perspective, I'm like, yeah, because of course my perspective is the better one.
Right.
So like going into it, like I need to make him see, I need him to, and that's, yeah, that's not fun. Because I know if I share something with someone and I'm received with that kind of energy, it's just like, well, I don't feel listened to, and like, why am I even bothering? So I think that's really, yeah, that takes a lot of skill to master that piece.
It is ongoing, and it's what
Mm-hmm.
I would call the healthy separation part of marriage. Because that's
Mm-hmm.
also what I learned that I adapted to my work with women is that with your
Mm-hmm.
kids we don't have healthy separation. The
Mm-hmm.
fantasy mom doesn't have healthy separation.
Yeah.
Everything is wonderful and enmeshed. We're just always glowing and in love with each other, with our children, and they're kissing us and we're hugging them. And when they don't, we're like, you're like, you're ruining this mothering experience for me. It was supposed to be wonderful. And then you go, oh wait, like they're having an emotional experience that I need to be able to detach from.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm so attached to them being happy children because I'm rearing them so beautifully, I'm going to be
Mm-hmm.
triggered by all their displeasure and be triggered by all their attitude problems. I'm always going to make a big deal about it. I'm going to be upset about it because I am not healthily detached from those kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so in marriage, it was the same thing for me. I had to go from, oh, we're harmonious, we have the same perspectives, we're in good moods together all the time, to, oh my goodness, like I'm going to live with someone for 50 years. I better let them have their own zone.
Yeah.
Like, good grief, who can stand it if you don't have your own zone?
Yes.
So the early parts, you want to kind of merge with someone. You're so excited to be with them.
Mm-hmm.
And then what has been so liberating for me and just totally increased the joy in our marriage is just pull that apart. We get to
Mm-hmm.
be totally different, as different as ever. It's great that we're different. That actually makes it more attraction. Like, let it be different, right?
Mm-hmm. I love that. And as you're saying, like detaching, what does that look like? Like you mentioned, like in a conversation, just holding space for their view. And what else does that, what does that look like with your husband?
I would say one of the critical areas of this detachment, which has been so important for me and is really hard for most of my clients, is that when you want to do something or believe something or go somewhere and he has some kind of feeling about it,
Mm-hmm.
you don't let that change your mind.
Mm-hmm.
So respect his requests, respect his boundaries, but don't cater to his mood.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a big difference there. And as women, we get into like, well, I love him and he's upset by this, so I shouldn't do it.
Mm.
Right.
Can you give an example of that?
Yeah. So a good example would be I want to go to the gym in
Mm-hmm.
the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
right? But he has to change his schedule a bit or whatever, or he
Mm-hmm.
has to inconvenience himself, or he has to watch the kids when they're cranky or sick, right? And he might be willing to do that. Like he said yes,
Mm-hmm.
but he's irritated because it's a shitty job. He doesn't want you to leave, right? And women will say, I have to stay home because my husband gets cranky when I go out. But you
Mm-hmm.
don't. Let him be cranky.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll blame him and we'll call it controlling, or we'll say he's being infantile, or he doesn't think he's treating us like the primary parent or whatever. And it's like, you're cranky when you have to take care of your kids sometimes too.
Mm-hmm.
And he's gone.
Yeah.
So like we really overly become involved in our husband's moods and emotions. And anytime, I actually worked this out with my husband recently because I wanted I wanted to learn belly dancing. And my
Mm-hmm.
kids are just old enough now that going out in the evening is not a total stress case for all of us. It's somewhat stressful, but not completely stressful. So I said, I want to go to these classes. So I started going to some. And sometimes my husband was grumpy, sometimes he wasn't. And then I said to him, look, I really want to go to every single class. But when I'm leaving the house, if there's tension, it makes it hard for me to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, well, just go. And I'm like, I know that you're not doing it to try to manipulate me or keep me in the house,
Yeah.
but I need like an enthusiastic approval of this.
Mm-hmm.
And because the relationship again is at this level where he doesn't feel like I'm demanding things and it's great,
Mm-hmm.
he now suppresses his expressiveness when I'm leaving the house. Because he's an expressive guy. He's going to
Yeah.
say out loud whatever he's feeling. He doesn't expect it to change me because he has a solid sense of self. It wouldn't change him,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I have
Mm-hmm.
that more typically feminine, typically more anxious attachment
Yeah.
style,
Yeah.
which orbits his mood and
Mm-hmm.
tries to make him happy all the time, or please
Mm-hmm.
him, or placate him. And because we're so different and he's sometimes more negative mind frame, that would be an impossible task.
Mm-hmm.
That would be completely impossible for him to, like, essentially what I believe I was subconsciously doing was trying to make him feel like I do most of the time by like not upsetting or like catering to or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
manipulating, dancing around. Oh, total nightmare. You become
Mm-hmm.
resentful of them. Every time they're upset, you're like, oh, I do everything. You're still grumpy. Like, get a life, man. Like you start blaming them for every negative experience they have, which again to them is like, what? I'm not allowed to be cranky. I'm not allowed to be upset about anything. Why are you getting in
Mm-hmm.
my face about nothing? But
Mm-hmm.
but this enmeshment that women have with their husbands causes
Yeah.
so much resentment in us
Mm.
that we put on them.
Yes. And thank you for saying that it's quite like it's more typical for women to experience the anxious attachment. It's more typical for women to be enmeshed in their partner's energy, to want to cater, to want to please, to want to keep the harmony. Um, yeah, I think it's important that it's very common for women to do that.
Yeah, I believe that it's what caused us to survive. Like I think it comes from an evolutionary behavior perspective that if you lived in a society where there's no rule of law,
Mm-hmm.
there's no cops, there's no rights, tribal society, the reason you survive as a woman, the reason your offspring survive is because you have the protection of a man who loves you or
Mm-hmm.
who cares about you,
Mm-hmm.
right? Who approves of you, who's
Mm-hmm.
chosen you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as long as you're chosen by a man, and as long as you feel like you're in his good graces, you won't die. Your offspring will go on.
Yeah.
So we get like a primal fear
Yes.
when we're disapproved of by our husbands. It's like that's why it's so
Ooh.
outsized. It's like he just looked at you sideways because you're leaving the house and you're like, oh, fine, I have to stay home. I'm gonna die if I deal with this anxiety and tension, actually leaving the house while he's disapproving of me. Oh my God. Like
Yeah.
must go in and like fuss and placate, which
Yes.
frankly makes it way worse. Men hate that.
Mm-hmm.
They are not pleased by it, but we don't know what else to do. So we get really smothering and weird. I was doing all those things. And it's honestly, I can't tell you how, like, this is the good news for us anxious women is when we give up this role of like
Mm-hmm.
pleaser, our husbands like us more,
Mm-hmm.
in a twist, in an ironic twist.
No
They
one saw it
do.
coming.
Yeah, we're like, wait, when I let him be mad, he's gonna be like, you are hot. Yes. What actually happens. And it's, I mean, I think it's partly because it's respectable. And they're like, damn, look at her. She's
Mm-hmm.
got some self-worth. She's got a little bit of swagger. She's got a little bit of, sass in her. Good for her. She must be cool girl. I
Yeah.
always say that, like, when we get married to a man, we understand that he wants a woman who's a catch, right? Who
Mm.
has options, who's got a life, who's like, whatever, she's great. Like, she's not like needy and like simpering and like on top of him every second of the day. That's obvious too when you're dating, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you get married, lose your sense of self, and forget all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And you start to be needy and desperate and like catering and placating. And it's because you're just scared and messed up and you've lost your sense of self.
Yeah.
So, like, one of my things I say is, I say dating advice is the best marriage advice,
Mm-hmm.
because it's all about dignity and self-worth and, like, regulating your emotions. Like, don't text them 7,000 times in a row.
Mm-hmm.
We do that when we're wives.
Yeah.
And we think it's not going to have a negative effect. Well, it does, because it's
Mm-hmm.
it's you're not keeping, it's that healthy tension, which I'm sure you talk about in polarity work. It's like, if you're collapsed into him either by begging or nagging or harassing or pleasing,
Mm-hmm.
he's just like, oh, like, I'm doing visual things on it. I'm putting my fists together. If you're collapsing the distance between you, like, if you picture two hands together like they're praying, all he can do
Mm-hmm.
is back up from you.
Yeah.
And so if you can't get your dignity and your grounding and stand up straight,
Yeah.
he's not going to be able to come towards you. He's not going
Mm-hmm.
to feel that attraction and tension for you. And this is
Mm-hmm.
something that in the marriage realm, where I am, people forget all this stuff. And they talk about, oh, we just need to communicate more and we just need to be open more. And it's like, we have communicated the hell out of ourselves in most marriages. Like,
Yes.
there has been too many words spoken, and you need to start acting like someone who is valuable and lovable and worthy and has a life.
Yes.
I call it vote with your feet, right? Like, if you don't like the way he's acting, go do something else
Mm-hmm.
sometimes. Don't
Mm-hmm.
just talk about how he's acting, just like go out the door. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's harder with kids. And that's where I think you get into that trap thing. Like, well, I'm stuck in the house with these kids, and like, you're here, and I can't like get my own space. And I'd say that's only true for the very early days. And
Mm-hmm.
after that, this is the hard part. You have to consciously remember that you could just go out the door, even with a kid in your hand. You could just get in the car and go to the beach. You could just go to the playground. You could do those things,
Yeah.
or you could take your kids to mom's house or to auntie's. Like, remind
Mm-hmm.
yourself when you're married that you don't have to stay put all the time.
Yeah. Yes.
And not out of an FU, right? Like, that's the important thing too. You're not doing it to make a statement. You're not doing it to make him pay. You're not doing it
Mm-hmm.
to make him sad or jealous, right? You're doing it so that you can get your balance, you can get your center, you can remember who you are.
Yes. I think that comes back to self-worth as well. And with all of this, it's the inner work, and it's getting to a point where you believe you're actually worth doing the inner work, and and worth getting out and going to the beach, and that you're literally worth as much as your children.
I
Yeah.
love that. Worth as much as your children, because it is all about self-worth. 100% could shout that from the rooftops with you. And like you said, the further step is, am I even worthy of any of this effort and time and attention, whether it's investing in someone or, taking a holiday or taking some time off? Why do
Mm-hmm.
I get to do that? Well, why don't you?
Mm-hmm.
One, but also the motherhood one is so key, because when we love our children and care for our children, we have a physical example of what someone does when they love someone and when they're worthy.
Mm-hmm.
The way you care for those kids is so holistic and, conscientious and careful and planned, and it takes money, it takes time, it takes energy, and you're like, all of it. You're worth all of it. We're doing it all, right? Because these kids are so precious and they're so worthy. And then you look at yourself and go, I give myself like 1/16 of any of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm their mother. Like I created these lives in a lot of ways, and I'm their example. I'm their home space, but I'm not worthy.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I often say, women, just think about the fraction of the love you give your children. Just give yourself some of that to start,
Yeah.
because it's triggering, as you know, to get too much at once. Just give a little
Mm-hmm.
bit. And I've done this. Like when I first started doing the work, it was like going for a walk when there
Mm-hmm.
was a mess in the house was anxiety provoking, right? Going for any walks when there was always work to be done was really, really hard at the beginning. And now I plan a mom retreat every year, and it gets longer every year. Where I'm like,
Nice.
away from the house for no other reason than to just do whatever I want to do, to experience life with no dependence for a couple days. And that was really anxiety producing the first time I did it. It felt selfish. It felt like, oh, I will
Mm-hmm.
be inconveniencing my husband for sure. My kids
Mm-hmm.
are going to miss me. They're small for sure. Right. But then after you do it and life goes on, it wasn't even a big deal at all. You re-regulate in your nervous system that I'm worthy of these things. The world doesn't fall apart.
Mm-hmm.
I feel better. I can do it again. And for me, I'm an example for my clients. I have to
Mm-hmm.
show them that women who are married and have small children don't have to give up their whole lives.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a requirement. And show
Mm-hmm.
my kids, you know, people always say, oh, you have daughters, and it shows them, but it's the same with sons. When you have sons, you're like, this is how women act to our mothers.
Yes.
This is the kind of woman you want to be with, who has a sense of self, who's going to speak up
Mm-hmm.
for herself, who's going to,
Mm-hmm.
pay attention to her own needs. That's going to be a healthier woman for you to be with.
Yeah.
So that all to me helps me get around some of those guilt or those lack of worthiness, is
Mm-hmm.
recognizing the benefits to my children, my clients, my community,
Yes.
when I treat myself with that kind of love and worthiness.
Mm. I love that. Yeah. Thank you. And where are you like today with your kids and your husband, and where are you at today? And within yourself, of course.
Well, I am more confident than I have been in my entire life. And I'm going to be 41 this year. And it's such a cool thing to recognize that it's not about your actual age or your actual stuff. It's like the inner work allows me to feel really much better about myself than I ever have, which is really
Mm.
fun because I am a normal woman who was plagued by insecurities my whole life, right? So shedding that stuff, worth $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
And then with my kids, it's I think my kids is the hardest one for me because I still want to not traumatize them at all, and I still want them to have this great emotional foundation. But what's amazing is I have all those conversations with them now, and I apologize, and it's more about transparency than perfection.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where that's my growth edge with my children is, yes, I'm going to get better at my reactions, and yes, I'm working on it, and I'm going to talk you through all of this. So at least you gain some learning in the process, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Love it.
and with my husband, what's so cool is it's better than it has ever been. So in the beginning, we had all the chemistry and connection, but we still had friction because there was still unconscious relating going on. I was still, you know, loud when triggered, or like, have to defend myself and have to stand. I had to kind of like must stand up for myself. What must say my opinions every time they come, because that's what a worthy woman does. And now
Mm-hmm.
it's like, no, a worthy woman has nothing to prove, has nothing to defend, has has no
Mm.
agenda. It's so great. It's so peaceful, right? And so he is, and I've taken the time to patiently teach him how to love me, which people
Hmm.
say you shouldn't have to teach people. But if you love the person and you want to stay married to them, put in the time to teach them, because it just makes it better.
Yeah.
So now, things like affection and words of affirmation, which were not a natural love language for him, he does them. He does
Mm-hmm.
them. And it's super exciting to me because even though it's not perfect, and we still have our friction sometimes, it's more passionate and more secure than it's ever been.
Wow, I love it. And I gotta say, like, you're definitely like oozing confidence and like self-belief and self-worth. Yeah, it's definitely radiating outward. And I love that you're transparent and open with your kids and that, yeah, that your marriage is, yeah, just that relaxing, like you said at the beginning, that trusting, surrendering, and letting go. And it sounds like you've been able to do that with all of that, with your family, with yourself.
Thank you so much for saying that. I think the biggest thing that I want to share for women who are more in that anxious type energy is
Mm-hmm.
that when you get to this place, you stop worrying about your relationship. You stop fixating on it. You
Mm-hmm.
stop having to like solve it all the time, right? Because I did that for years. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, okay, there might be a thing here or there that needs a bit of work, but I'm not like expending so much energy there. So I
Mm-hmm.
actually can put it into myself and my passions and all these other things. Because it's not just like the anxious, this needs
Yeah.
to be closer. I don't feel secure enough. Something's not quite right. I'm not loved enough. What's missing? What's missing? What's missing? That
Mm-hmm.
has like released.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. What's for women that are in the dating phase or maybe just at the early stages of a relationship, maybe they're thinking about having kids with their partner. What do you think is a conversation that they should be having with their partner before having kids?
I think one of the main questions that you want to ask is about division of labor. Like, what exactly role do you want to have or are you willing to have? Like, what are you
Mm-hmm.
excited to have and what are you willing to do? Because
Mm-hmm.
people have so much history on that that's assumed. You have no idea what they mean by fatherhood. You have no idea what that looks like at all. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
just don't know. And then the other thing would be like, how able or willing are they to deal with the fluctuations in sexual activity, the total change in romantic relationship, because you hear about people cheating on their wives when they're like pregnant or like when
Mm-hmm.
the baby just came, and that always
Mm-hmm.
breaks my heart because I'm like, what greater betrayal than that? I can't even think. And there's many men who don't have that. They're like, oh yeah, they have self-control, they understand their seasons, it's just like normal for them. So you want to
Mm-hmm.
kind of like ask about that and also kind of test it out. Like, if you have a man who's entitled sexually and has no self-control, that's a nightmare with family. That's an
Mm-hmm.
absolute nightmare because even when you have a great passionate relationship, there's so many obstacles that there's just periods where you don't, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And those men will go to pornography or they'll go to other women or they'll go to Instagram, and it's really like, for me, that's like the mature masculine is like, oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I got this part covered, don't worry. Like, I can handle myself, versus like the like, oh my god, I can't go that long, like what do you expect from me?
Uh-huh. Wow, so important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. For women listening that want to connect with you, what's the best way to reach out to you?
So you can just come and follow me on Facebook. So I'm just Shiloh Minor, and I do lives weekly and post a lot on there. So you can kind of get in the vibe. And you can also just message me. Um, I offer free consultations to people who want to know what it's like to work with me. But if you just want to kind of test the waters and say hello, Messenger is the way to do that. I'll leave the link for the free consultation with you so that they can just do that. But message me, just say hi if there's something where you're like, okay, I need to dig deeper into this, I need to figure this out. um, I'm happy to speak with you.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll be sure to leave those links in the show notes to make it easy for people to do that. Yeah. Wow. Okay, so but just final question before we wrap up. What song are you dancing to nowadays?
I have always loved Whitney Houston, I Want to Dance with Somebody.
Oh
And I
yeah.
have actually, my husband has actually come to dance lessons with me in this year, which he would never have agreed to throughout our entire relationship. So if that's not evidence of progress, I don't know what is.
I love it. Great song. And I love that you guys are taking dancing lessons. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Love
Yeah.
it. Is there anything that we haven't touched on? Is there anything that's like that you're burning to to
I
talk
don't think
about.
so. I really loved our conversation. Thank you so much for asking great questions and just feedback and everything. I really enjoyed it.
No, awesome. Thank you so much, Shiloh, for coming on and chatting with me today. Yeah, it was such a treat listening to you. You've got such a passion for your own story, like your own experience, but also working with women and helping them, navigate these rough waters. And it's so wonderful to see that you've come out the other side. And yeah, it's just been such a treat listening to you. So thank you so much.
Thank you. You're so sweet.
Mm.